Are you ready for the best Kansas City Chiefs insight? Welcome to ChiefsBlitz.com YouTube podcast with your hosts, Nick Affett, Andre Tillman, and producer Hence Todd. They'll break down the three-time Super Bowl champions as only they can do. Here's your host, Nick Affett.
Welcome back to another edition of Chiefs Blitz, presented to you by our YouTube channel, ChiefsBlitz.com. I'm your host, Nick Affett, and I am joined by producer extraordinaire, Hence Todd. I'm going to take my glasses off here. Here we go. Oh, I can't see nothing. Hence is joining us today. Hey, first I want to Lou Montagne, who filled in for me over the weekend, did a great job. I want to thank him. But the Chiefs roster cuts are finally out. It only took Kansas City, 60 minutes past the deadline to make the official release. So we can definitively say two things, Hence. Number one, Chris Jones is a no-show. And our boy Justyn Ross has made the 53-man roster. And Andy Reid has done something he has never done before. He's carrying seven wide receivers.
Okay, let's go. I was waiting. I was rooting for Justyn Ross when he came out of Clemson. Andre Tillman is not on here today, but he will back me up. I've been rooting for this guy for the longest. I was wondering, like, how did he go undrafted? Why? Because his injuries. But man, oh man, I think he's going to be great. Mark my words, Chiefs Kingdom. You're gonna love Justyn Ross. There's gonna be a lot of number 8s in the stands. So
it'll be a very popular jersey. It'll be one that a lot of fans are gonna get. And I was telling you before the show, I tried to look for it, I couldn't find it, but I put a post up after the draft a couple years ago and said, "Hey, Justyn Ross, Chiefs need to sign him." Everybody said I was crazy. And voila, he gets drafted.
yeah, it's gonna be amazing this year. Seeing a lot of people that's rooting for Justyn Ross around the NFL, around the NFL world. Chiefs would have been heck of a crazy if they cut Justyn Ross, because he will win. He will end. Everybody know where he ended up if they cut him. He'd been right over there in Jacksonville with Trevor Lawrence.
Yeah, no, he probably end up in Buffalo. Who knows? But I think most definitely that you look at this kid and what he's gone through. The injuries, the expectations, highly touted. In college, caught balls from Trevor Lawrence. Had everything going for him until he gets injured. Comes back, Chiefs sign him as an undrafted free agent. He makes some wow plays in OTAs and mini camps, and then they decided, hey, he got injured again. Let's get the surgery done. And you saw what was like February or so, March. You start seeing these videos of him out of the boot doing full drills. Went down and worked out with Patrick Mahomes in Texas, and I mean he struggled. We talked about this, OTAs, mini camps. He seemed to have some issues adapting to everything. But that time off between there and the start of training camp, he figured whatever it is that he was missing, he figured it out. And he's been lights out, throughout camp, made plays in all 3 preseason games. Barely has worked with Patrick Mahomes as the number 1 guy, which is going to be fun to watch. God knows what the two of those can do together. And the Chiefs have never had, a 6'4" speed burner that can accelerate and has the hops to be that tall receiver that you need. And we saw the touchdown pass from Bichelle, who ironically didn't make the team, as we suggested probably was going to be the case. But nonetheless, you saw him go up and get that ball, and there's not a cornerback or defender that's going to be able to stop that. It's impossible. Now sky's the limit. He still has to prove it. He still has to stay healthy. But I'm excited about the receiver core. I mean, think about it. Get Kadarius Toney, former number 1 pick, Justyn Ross, who should have been a number 1 pick, Rashee Rice, the number 2 pick. You got MVS. You got the reliable Mr. Watson, who can play any wide receiver position. And you look at Sky Moore and his potential. You and I talked about this before the show started. This might end up being the very best wide receiver core that Andy Reid has ever had in Kansas City, and that means Patrick Mahomes as well.
Yeah. Yeah, and I can see it being that way. Have we like I said before? You think about it, guys. We only had Tyreek Hill. And that's about it. Everybody else was trying to fill in shoes. Yeah, Brian Pringle. Yeah, Sammy Watkins, but he was on the back end of his career. You know, he was more injury prone. So you have Sammy Watkins one week, then you don't have him next week. But we had Albert Wilson, DeMarcus Robertson, Brian Pringle, all those guys, but we ain't never had no Justyn Ross. We ain't never had like a 6'4", somebody that's big and physical, like a TO that's gonna take the ball out the air, just like I think this is gonna be the best receiver core that the Chiefs gonna have, for my opinion. And if you do play Madden, this is the best receiver core on Madden. I don't know, you Nick, you don't play Madden, so you don't know. So on the best receiver core, a lot of people can't stop Rashee Rice and Justyn Ross right about now. So imagine in real life.
Well,
imagine in real life what's going to happen.
To be fair, I played Madden before it was cool. So that's how old I am. So yeah, that's what PlayStation 1 or 2, I think, way back when. But yeah, no, I'm loving this. I always felt they would keep the 7. Obviously, they traded Smith-Marset to the Carolina Panthers this morning for a swap of 7-round picks, and not 2023 or 24, but in 2025. So maybe that tells you exactly how the Chiefs felt, and also what the Panthers think that they're getting. They've got a terrible wide receiver situation right now, and they can definitely use him. But I never felt like he had any chance to make this roster. He was never cracking the top 7, and it's going to be fascinating to watch because not only the wide receivers, but this is the best offensive line that I think Kansas City has had since the Dick Vermeil era. When we're talking, that Willie Roaf and Will Shields, Casey Wigman, Brian Waters, and John Tate. Those guys were 5, and Casey Wigman was the most undersized, probably about 20 pounds less than most of those guys, but they were maulers. And I think for the first time, Andy's got 5 maulers on that offensive line. And for Patrick Mahomes, we haven't even mentioned Travis Kelce yet. Nor mentioned, Isaiah Pacheco, any of the other options that are out there. This offense, it's going to take a little time. Let's not go, oh my God, they're going to set all these NFL records. They're not going to be the greatest show on turf or grass or whatever like that.
That's what you say, Nick. But I've said they are.
Initially, give these guys some time. But they've been working their tail off. Patrick trusts every one of these guys. I can tell you that Patrick's just got to be ecstatic to have this plethora of weapons.
I'll put it like this. Think about it, guys. Everybody, we just had Tyreek Hill, and everybody knew the Chiefs was going to go deep Tyreek Hill and underneath Travis Kelce. But now you're going to go deep MVS underneath Travis Kelce. Out on the outside, Justyn Ross. Give the ball to Rashee Rice. He runs like a running back with receiver hands. Sky Moore coming across the middle, and guess what? We ain't mentioned Kadarius Toney. How Kadarius Toney's going to come out the back for his jet sweeps. And just be juking everybody, I just can't imagine. I just can't wait to see what this wide receiver group do when Thursday night when it's going to open up the season against the Lions. They're gonna cook the Lions. I can tell you that. The Lions can't stop the run, and it's just gonna be embarrassing what the Chiefs is gonna do. So I can't wait to see Justyn Ross. I can't wait to see Rashee Rice. Even though that preseason game, a lot of people, a lot of Bronco fans are out there putting a lot of tweets up saying that he's a bust already. But
it's okay.
They whole quarterback is a bust.
They're
what I mean? So
they're
the kings of the bus. They driving the bus right about now. Yeah. So we I'm not gonna worry about nothing like that. And a lot of people, like you said about the offensive line, a lot of people was saying on Twitter that Orlando Brown, a lot of Bengals fans are saying Orlando Brown is he's better than Jonathan Taylor. Not Jonathan Taylor, but Taylor, that because he got if you watch the block, it looked like he got put on the ground, but actually he tossed the guy over and threw him over. So he won that rep in my mind. So I just can't wait to see this 53-man roster, how they put it together. Yep. But it's surprise cuts. Let's talk about the cuts. It's a surprise cut that I didn't see coming.
Yeah, there were. I mean, obviously, Danny Shelton was a surprise to me. I thought he had a terrific preseason. Obviously, Shane Bichelle. They were never going to keep 3 quarterbacks. Even Mike Florio, Pro Football Talk, said that a couple of days ago. Matt Bushman was a popular guy. Maybe they find a spot for him on the practice squad. Khalif Helassi from Western Michigan, the defensive back, I thought played really well. I really liked his game.
Man.
I thought he came to play. Joshua Kandow, finally that draft pick's gone. Darian Kennard was probably a pretty big surprise for me. I thought he had a chance, former 5th-round pick. They moved him around from tackle to guard, and they've got a lot of depth on the offensive line, so maybe that's one of the reasons that they did that. Maybe they bring him back. LaMichael Perrine, the running back from Florida, I thought he was better than Clyde Edwards-Helaire in my opinion. But I don't think they were gonna trade him yet. Daniel Wise, the journeyman defensive end from my school, University of Kansas, played a lot with the ones, and I really thought he would make the spot, especially with the Chris Jones absence. The Nico Remigio thing, they waived him and as injured, so they can bring him back, and they probably will. So that was a procedural move. Other than that, I think they did good. Now, we didn't even talk about, bouncing around here, but I just want to get some of those names out. Of those guys, who was the biggest surprise to you?
The cornerback. I was surprised at number 12. I keep on forgetting his name because I don't have the list right in front of me. I don't want to be looking down, but I'm surprised.
I'll do it for you. Khalif Helassi. I don't know if I'm pronouncing it right.
Now I've been rooting for him. I'm surprised that he got cut. He played very well. I think he could have been like a good. I would snuck him on the special teams, and let him play special teams and let him build himself, let him build his confidence up. But I think he played very well. You look at his snaps. A lot of people wasn't getting open on him. Right. All the balls was thrown his way was contested, and he would have had the interception if number 30 didn't jump in front of him in the last preseason game.
Yeah.
So other than that, yeah. So I that's my surprise, and my winner is Kim Jones making the roster. I was rooting for him, and he's another guy that I didn't see. Like, why is he? I like last show, I told you guys that I don't know, this last episode or the episode before that, I was saying that I compared him to Derek Thomas, not Derek Thomas, but Derek Johnson. Derek Johnson. Everybody's like, what? I was like, I didn't see him going undrafted because he played very well in college. I think the Chiefs got a great steal there and a great pickup there.
Yeah, they definitely did. I mean, he's just a playmaker. He's one of those glue guys you need on defense. You can always also put him on special teams as well. And I think what's critical is, again, the depth, the fact that they're not afraid to put, young guys out there. They put him in, and they sacrificed Candu, who had 3 seasons to prove that, that he belonged, and it didn't happen. And, the thing that concerns me about the roster is obviously the interior of the defense. Now, they traded with the Raiders for former LSU standout Neil Farrell Jr., who was I think a 4th-round pick last year, 2022. So the Raiders clearly gave up. The Chiefs only gave up a 6th. Probably it's interesting that they trade within the division. However, a lot of the Patriots personnel are with the Raiders now, and Brett Veach has always had a good relationship with those guys. So I don't think that trade is as unusual, but the fact they cut Weiss, they cut Shelton, that means, Neil's going to get a lot of reps to start the season. Omenihu is going to be out for 6 games. Chris Jones is going to miss anywhere from 0 to 8 games. So they have to play that factor into that as well. But I don't know if there's something up their sleeve. There's potentially another trade of some kind. But I know that they had flirted with bringing Carlos Dunlap back. I know he wants to come back to Kansas City. However, now with Chris Jones refusing to accept whatever it is, 25, 26, 27, $8 million a year, that really hamstrings them unless they put themselves in a position where they have to go in and maybe extend a contract to a veteran that maybe they weren't planning on 2025 into 2026. So just have to see how that plays out. But Neil Farrell, underachiever, surprise. Raiders defensive player, surprise. But Joe Cullen's, one of the best defensive line coaches, if not the best in the NFL. And if he can squeeze something out of him. Now, is he a long-term replacement? No. But he's a rotational guy. And the Chiefs have, they've got some young guys in the middle, too, that they're going to give a chance to. Hopefully, Treshaun Wharton will be ready to go, and be able to go. But, the defensive line is it's a little thin for my taste, especially with the schedule. And I'm concerned if I'm a Chiefs fan that's going to be an issue going forward.
Yeah, I'm concerned too, but not concerned because I feel like Chris Jones is going to be there because I don't see no man on Earth or in space, on the moon, or up in the water going to miss half of their paycheck of millions of dollars that's going to be lost if he sit out week 8. So I see him there I see him there in the opener. I see him there. My fingers are crossed. I'm holding out all hope that he's there week 1. You know what I mean? But other than that, if he's not, the Chiefs will have to fix the D tackle position. Right. I think they got BJ Thompson, they see a lot in him, and they got Carver, they got good young D ends, but they got to fix the interior defense. So if Chris Jones is not here, I'm on every roster looking for replacement pieces. Yeah. They can get me through the season. Or you're gonna have to outscore everybody, but Chris Jones, if you don't see nothing else, if you watching this show, if you just come across of it, just hear me out. We love you here in the kingdom. Everybody loves you. If you just saying that you can afford it, you can afford to hold out. That's what one of your tweets said, or you retweeted back to somebody. If that's the case, afford to come back home, baby. Come back home to the kingdom where we're gonna need you. We're gonna need you this season. But if not, you know what I mean? It was best having you around on the kingdom. It was best to have you here amongst the 2 Super Bowls that we won. But if that's the case, we're gonna have to move on as the kingdom.
Yeah, well, for Mr. Optimism, I'm not sure I understand your path there. But I mean, Chris, this is a once in a lifetime opportunity for Chris. I get it. I think he overplayed his hand. I think the Chiefs underplayed their hand a little bit. And this boils down, it isn't as much about the money now. It's about the ego and having a winner. It's like in a political race, You got to have a winner, you got to have a loser, and the loser's got to show everything that he tried, and the winner's got to, be happy that he won and still come out of it in a humble manner. Listen, I've never known anybody who's talked bad about Chris Jones. I've never heard anybody say anything about him that he wasn't a team guy. But he feels he's better than Aaron Donald and wants to get paid $31 million. And I'm not going to blame him for that. I don't think it's smart. I don't think it's attainable. The cap can't handle that. It's just numbers are numbers. So, I had this argument with a good friend of mine the other day, and it was like, well, what's the difference between 26, 27, $28 million when you're making 26, 27, $28 million a year? You're still in the same tax bracket. The government's going to get half, and you still have a very rich contract you've gotten before, plus your rookie contract. So, listen, again, I've known a lot of players. I've seen a lot of negotiations. I've talked to a lot of agents. At the end of the day, you got to save face when it gets to this point, and I'm not sure who's going to blink first. I think the Chiefs are pretty dug, so I think it's going to have to be Chris.
Yeah. So in your eyes, do you think Chris Jones is going to sign long term? Still after we witness all this, wait out all this. I can wait till week 8. I can afford the millions of dollars I'm going to lose. I don't know what rich man would. I don't know what billionaire would say something like that. Like if it's millions of dollars and you got it like that to lose, then hey, come on, sponsors us. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Sponsors us here.
We'll call it the Chris Jones Show.
We
Come
call
on,
it
give us 30 seconds to a minute with his own money.
Well, other than that, do you see him still signing long term?
I want to believe that. I think he meant what he said when he wanted to retire as a Chief. But he's put his team in a really bad position to improve upon the roster. We don't know the reasons that all this went down, but once Frank Clark signed with the Broncos, that seemed to me to be kind of a turning point. But if they were a combination package, Chris all had to do was sign a new deal, and the Chiefs probably would have retained him. But I didn't think the Broncos were going to guarantee him $8 million either. That's a lot of money for a guy that's going to get you maybe 6 sacks a year, a few sacks in the playoffs. I mean, they're not making the playoffs. So to me, that's a lot of money. But I think if Chris said, hey, I'll take lesser deal, but I want Frank to do, I think they probably would have worked the thing out. But now, because he didn't, or the Chiefs refused at that point in the negotiations, then I think Chris, maybe that upset Chris. But listen, I'd say it's very doubtful he'll be there for week 1. I would say there's a better chance he's there in week 2 at Jacksonville. But if this goes 8 games, then the Chiefs will just tag him next year. And we're going to go through this all over again. And I think the tag's only like 19, maybe 20 million. So I don't know that for certain. So I again, none of this makes sense. But that's why you have a defensive coordinator like Steve Spagnuolo, who's gonna come up with a game plan, and that's why you've got some young guys who are gonna be thrown in the fire, and just all of a sudden are gonna have to play at a level in which they haven't played before. I mean, Derek Nottie, Keandre Coburn. These are guys that are gonna have to step up and make plays in the interior of that defense. Neil Farrell, as we mentioned, trade from the Raiders. He's going to have to step in. He may be number 2 on the depth chart. He will be number 2 on the depth chart. So, these are things that they're going to have to fix. But, is that is the biggest question mark on the defense. And they've got some young corners. They've got some young safeties. The news on Nick Jones is good. He was balling till he broke one of his fingers or fractured or whatever it is. He didn't have to have surgery, which means, they could put him on IR, after Tuesday, and they could designate him to return in 4 weeks or so, maybe 4. I don't know that officially, but that's good news. L'Jarius Sneed, hopefully he'll be back. They've got all this depth, and the linebackers have depth. Drew Tranquill has been absolutely amazing. He's been so solid. And, that's what you're going to need from this defense. They're going to have to change their style a little bit because last year, in a lot of occasions, they relied on the pass rush, to disrupt. And, you can only bring corners and safeties so many times. But if they do, the good news is they've got a more athletic secondary. They've got an athletic linebacker in Tranquill. I think Bolton's decent in coverage. I don't think Willie Gay's that great in coverage. But he's the guy that can stuff the run and blitz as well. I think you're going to see the linebackers are going to be very, 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 very active for this defense. And again, they don't have to be perfect. They just can't give up a 28, 30-point performance, 35-point performance and rely on Patrick Mahomes to go put 40 up every night. Now, it's quite possible he's going to put 40 points up no matter what. But, this defense doesn't have to be lights out. It just has to create enough stops to either change momentum or get the ball back to the offense. And if we saw anything last year from this defense, it was, they were able to create some turnovers. They did that in the postseason, obviously, which helped them out in all three of those victories. And that's what you look for. So they just have to be opportunistic, and they'll have to play a different style without Chris Jones. And the way that Andy Reid looked at it, when I think he reached his boiling point with the media asking him about it was, we just look at Chris as being injured and not available, next man up. So they got Pharrell today to maybe be the next man up. I would assume they're going to, maybe look at adding another veteran defensive tackle here if they do something with Nick Jones. But, this team is always going to rely on Patrick Mahomes in the offense. But I think they have enough in the secondary with the linebackers to be able to be effective enough to where they can still win the games. Their schedule is difficult the first 8 games, the games that Chris is going to be gone. But after that, it really heats up with the best matchups, the Bengals, the Eagles, the Dolphins, the Bills. You're going to have some pretty fun and entertaining teams. The Chiefs are going to be playing against the Packers. So I think if they can get through the first part, if Chris Jones decides to just say he's not coming back to week 8, then for the first 7 weeks, he won't play in week 8. Probably maybe he plays in week 8. We'll see. But, there's enough there. I think they can survive Chris Jones. Now, can they win a Super Bowl? Still up to Patrick Mahomes. As long as you got Patrick Mahomes, anything's possible.
Well, if you got number 15, and he's on that sideline, Mr. Golden Boy, hey, he's all. That's why I tell everybody, I don't care about it. Hey, Chris Jones, Travis Kelce, as long as you got Patrick Mahomes, hey, you have a chance. You have a chance to win. But Chris Jones also got to look at this. You a D tackle, you ask for Aaron Donald money, and then you sitting out. You're not getting younger, you're getting older. The weeks go by, the more you're getting older, and the more your money's going to go down. So if you want all this big money, if you're not about the rings no more and you just all about the contract, then we don't need you.
Yeah, well, what's fascinating,
I know you want your money, but if you're not going to be about making the team better, then making it worse and just sitting out when you're already getting paid $20 million, plus, then we don't need you around here. But
I think what's interesting is, when Andy Reid was at Philadelphia, if you were over 30, you didn't get a contract. Mm-hmm. And the only person in the Andy Reid era that's gotten a big contract over the age of 30 is number 87 for the Kansas City Chiefs, Travis Kelce. Mm-hmm. The fact that they were willing to give that to Chris Jones tells me a lot about how much they feel they need him. Mm-hmm. Because Andy's like, hey, we got to keep this guy. We got to do what we need to do. And the fact that they were trying to move up in the first round with Dallas that came out of that series with the Cowboys to get Mozzie Smith, I think, the defensive tackle, that would have been Chris's replacement. They'd have given up a 3rd round pick to make it happen. But, that would have been the guy they could plug and play. And who knows, maybe Chris Jones is traded after that. I never thought the Chiefs would actually trade Chris Jones with a draft being in Kansas City. I just think that would have put a dark cloud over the whole thing. But he's upsetting fans. Marilee just put a post. She's right. It's kind of, some of us got a bad taste about it. Some people have been incredibly cruel and insensitive, which, we don't need any of that stuff. Chris has to make his decision. But I think that I think that Chris at some point will have a, what am I doing moment? And hopefully he comes to his senses. But the team moves on. The roster cuts were made. No real big super surprises outside of me. I think Shane Pichel, even though we kind of all agreed that Chiefs were going to carry 2 quarterbacks, they really tried to focus him. I'm sure there were some trade discussions as well. Would not be shocked if he ends up in Washington with the Commanders to reunite with Eric Bieniemy. So there really wasn't anything that was like, oh my God, this is something that says,
it's because this roster is very deep. You know what I mean?
It's crazy deep.
It's a deep roster, and we have, only thing that's looming over the Chiefs is Chris Jones.
Yeah.
Everything else, we already knew what was going to happen.
Yeah, and I know we kind of belabor the point on this topic, but it was vital today for the Chiefs to maneuver the cap to get something done with Chris. It didn't happen. Now the Chiefs know where they sit, and Chris Jones has lost every ounce of leverage going forward. It's on the Chiefs' terms now. He doesn't want to show up till week 8. The Chiefs are not liable for the salary. It does come off the cap, so they'll have a little bit of room if he has an extended holdout. So again, this is his decision, and I respect it. I don't like it, but there's nothing we can do about it. But I want to go back to these roster cuts a little bit, because I think what's interesting here is the Chiefs weren't afraid to get rid of guys that have had some success in Kansas City. And I think that's interesting. I think that shows a lot of maturity. That shows a lot of they have a plan. We talked about this, I think, on the first show, that after their Super Bowl 54 win, they did that whole run it back thing, and they tried to keep the majority of the guys, and even guys that we knew probably shouldn't have been on the roster, and they came close, but they failed in the end. And I think that taught them a valuable lesson, that if it's not working, it's not working, and there's no sense in keeping the inevitable from happening. So I like the fact that they were willing to get rid of some draft picks, some guys who looked really good in camp that'll probably be practice squad guys for sure. Some guys that are probably going to fall on a few rosters, and that you can do that when you're a 2-time Super Bowl champion and you learn your lessons from the last go round. Especially after that loss to the Bucs and everything that transpired, between the injuries and the toe issue for Patrick. And so they've learned their lessons, and they rebounded. They did it their way last offseason. They're doing it this way. And if they get rid of Chris Jones, great. If they get rid of Clyde Edwards-Helaire at some point, which I think ultimately they will, then they realize, hey, it just didn't work. I know. Neither of us. Listen, nothing against the kid personally, but ever since he took that hit his rookie year against the New Orleans Saints, he has not been the same runner. He doesn't run with the same vision. He doesn't cut back. He's good in open space. He holds the ball like he's stolen the Cliff Notes version of the next test, running down the sidelines. And again, that's fine and for what it is, but the Chiefs tried to showcase him, and it's just he'll get some reps, but it's going to be the Pacheco McKinnon role going forward, and all Clyde Edwards-Helaire has to come in and is just play a few plays here to get some rest, but not a fan. But the Chiefs have no other choice. I think with Perrine, again, kind of a shock, but
yeah,
I can't pay any stock into guys who have a lot of success in preseason games against second, third, and fourth team guys. You really can't tell anything. You really, unless you're playing with the ones against the ones, and some of the ones played on Saturday against their ones, and they fell flat. Some of the twos played against the ones, and they fell flat. Some of the threes played against the ones, because the Browns played a lot of their guys into the second quarter. They didn't play well. So nothing is. It's great for the fans to like a guy, to say, well, he did this, he made a play or two, but unless you're going up against their best or their top backups, it's really hard to gauge. I think Justyn Ross was an exception to that. He looked good with all three quarterbacks. And Rashee Rice, outside of the drops, he looked good with all the quarterbacks too. I think that's something you have to look at in the roster construction. But I don't see anything that says the Chiefs made a mistake here or did anything to that to go down that road. Other than, hey, we really like this kid and we thought it'd be a nice guy on the roster. But listen, if Andy Reid doesn't want you in a roster, you're not going to be there. If Andy Reid doesn't think you can be the next man up, you're not going to be there.
Mm-hmm. So speaking of the roster, would you say MVS, this is going to be probably his last year You know what I mean? If the Chiefs are sitting there and they have, Justyn Ross, they have Rashid Rice, Sky Moore, and Kadarius Toney, and Justin Watson, I think that's going to be probably his last year with the Chiefs this year, because it's going to be more talent that's coming out the draft, and probably they pick up some more people that's going to be cut, like Rodney Anderson, Robbie Anderson, that I think he'd be a good fit on the Chiefs. Then you got he was in Carolina, he was in Arizona, then he just got cut by the Miami Dolphins, correct?
Yep.
So, and I think he'll be another. If I was the Chiefs, I'll pick him up also.
Yeah, it could be a practice squad guy, absolutely.
Practice squad. No, I would think he make that.
Who are you going to cut? Who are you going to get rid of?
Watson.
Well, I mean, Watson knows this offense better than any of the receivers, and I just think that's too valuable because not only does he know the offense for Patrick Mahomes and he trusts him, but he can also teach the other guys, hey, here's what to look for, here's what to do. Here's what you need to do when Patrick Mahomes is doing his Patrick Mahomes thing. Because ironically, I mean, Patrick wasn't touched pretty much all preseason, and I think he went outside the pocket just to have some fun. And that's scary. That is scary sickness. If he's just doing it for fun when he's got a pocket that he can step up into. So,
but they're gonna we're gonna have a real test coming against the Lions defensive line. So we're gonna have to see where we really stand. Because a few snaps, the offensive line looked good. But Cleveland, they kind of looked a little, because our starter stayed in for a little bit longer. They looked a little questionable to me.
I agree.
Just gonna be the real test Thursday night. You know what I mean? But and the Chiefs is gonna have, Andy Reid gonna have his team ready to go.
Oh yeah.
But dang, my the bugger in my head is like they gave up on Prince for Clyde Edwards-Helaire, and I was like, come on, go. But it happens. But
again, he knows the offense. He's played with the ones. He has had some success in the NFL, so we'll give him the benefit of the doubt until there's no more reason to give him a benefit of the doubt, and that'll be on him. Who knows? Maybe he has 600, 700, 800 yards and 5, 6, 7 touchdowns, and if he does, great. He'll go into the offseason as a free agent. The Chiefs will get a pick for him in 25, and we're all good. So, if they get Prince back, and if they get them and see what they do there, maybe he steps up in practice and they put him on the active roster, and maybe he does well. He's got a lot of talent. I think he'll give the Chiefs first crack. I mean, he was, if I'm not mistaken, one of the highest paid undrafted free agents. And so the Chiefs felt strongly enough.
I don't think he's making it through the waiver wire. I think somebody's gonna pick him up.
I'm kind of with you. I think somebody will put him on the 53, the team that needs running backs. So who knows? Maybe the Eagles will add another running back. They've only got like 3 or 4 top guys. So maybe they need a 5th. Who knows? So before we go, I did Marilee asked a question that we really haven't talked about. What are your predictions for the season? She's at 13-4. What do you think, Hens? I mean, I kind of have a thought, but go first. Tell me what you think. How many wins? Obviously, we think they're going to go to the Super Bowl, but how many regular season wins? I say
12-5.
Ooh.
I always say 12-4, but they add an extra game, so I got to go 12-5.
So let me see. So you're saying they're going to lose 5 games? Wow.
5. I think that we're going to get. I think we're going to get caught up. We're going to get caught up by the Dolphins, and
really?
when we go, I think so. It's going to be a close game, but not a bad game. I think we'll I think we'll take out the Bengals. But I got us losing. I think we're gonna win the division, but I got us losing to the Raiders in one game.
No,
it's gonna be like a bad I'm just got you asked me what are my
Okay, that's
prediction.
fine.
So
I respect your
I think
decision. I'll disagree with you here in a second.
I think that it's going to be a loss against the Dolphins, the Raiders, and who else? Who else was on the list? I think we're going to beat the Jets. I think we'll beat the Jets. I think it's going to be a close game. I think we'll lose against. I don't know. I don't have the schedule right in front of me.
Okay. I got it. So here's what I think. I think they'll beat the Lions. I think they'll beat the Jaguars. They'll beat the Bears. I think they'll win a close game against the Jets. I think they'll lose to the Vikings because the Chiefs have never played well in Minnesota.
I got them winning that one.
Yeah, so you got the Broncos and Chiefs, Chargers and Chiefs. Next couple of weeks, I think they win there. I think they lose at Denver before they go overseas. I think the Dolphins game's got a lot on it. I think they're going to be fired up. Now, I don't know if the Chiefs are going to beat the Eagles because it's such a revenge game for them. And then you finally get to play the Raiders, I think, Thanksgiving week. Then at the Packers, home against the Bills, at the Patriots, Raiders again on Christmas in Arrowhead. And then you end with Bengals and Chiefs. It's Bengals or Chiefs and Chargers. I think there's 3 losses there. I would say if I'm predicting right now, I would go with Vikings. I would go with Eagles, and I'll go with one of the Broncos games. That's what I think.
I think behind the NFL, everybody say the script, but how I think is out right now. I think the Chiefs is gonna drop one against the Bills, and the Chiefs will. I hope it not. I pray not, but I think this is gonna be. We got to see Mahomes on the road in the playoffs.
I don't know, man. I don't know what's gonna happen.
That's why I feel like it. I think they're gonna go 12-5, but they still win the Super Bowl this year.
Yeah, if they go 12-5 and they're the number 2 seed, and Mahomes wins the road playoff game, then everybody will say, "Well,
it's gonna be." I
don't have to hear that Joe Burrow is 2-0 against the Chiefs or 2-1 now.
It's gonna be the road playoff game with Chiefs at the Bills.
Yep.
Bengals ain't even making the playoffs.
No, I'm going to swap you out there. I don't think the Bills will make the playoffs, but I think the Bengals will.
Yeah, I got it's gonna the Madden curse is gonna catch up with
you're one of those guys, huh?
Yeah, right. It's gonna catch up with Josh Allen. It's gonna catch up with Josh Allen. So I think the Chiefs will be on the road in the snow in Buffalo. And Patrick Mahomes, what do you say? He loves when he play where? In the snow.
Loves playing in the snow. Absolutely. Well, he might get his chance this year. Who knows? I think more of the AFC title game is going to be in. I think potentially in Cincinnati. The Baltimore doesn't scare me much because of the quarterback. I'm sorry, it's never going to equate to me. The Jaguars scare me. Trevor Lawrence, Doug Peterson. It's not Andy Reid and Patrick Mahomes, and they certainly haven't achieved enough together to put him in any kind of a comparable light yet, but those 2 guys are the real deal. And I think Trevor Lawrence, despite the fact that he got almost ruined by his head coach his rookie year and Urban Meyer, that he somehow pulled it together. And they didn't play well the early part of last year, and then they went on a hot streak and they ran into the Chiefs, and they could have won that football game. Clearly they didn't. But in the end, I think if there's a road playoff game this year, I think the Bengals have the biggest chip on their shoulder. Now, I don't think the Bengals are as good defensively as they were a year ago, and I think offensively, depending on the seriousness of the Joe Burrow incident, the injury has been very quiet. We really don't know, what's really going on there. We've seen some pictures of him practicing and things like that, but nothing that shows that he's going to be ready for week 1. That's a lingering type issue. But to me, I think the Bengals have the biggest chip on their shoulder, and I think the Chiefs have the biggest obstacle to overcome, which is to win Super Bowls back to back. And that's going to be difficult. But I'm with you. I want to see Patrick on the road win a playoff game, and then everybody we don't have to talk about it anymore.
Yeah.
But
so that's why I said my 5 losses, guys. And I
want to see that.
Yeah, I don't say the Chiefs will
Okay.
go undefeated. The Chiefs will go undefeated, but us to go on the road, we'll have to lose a couple AFC games. That's why I said the Dolphins.
Okay.
One to the Raiders. We'll win the division though, but it'll be the Chiefs and the Buffalo in the playoffs because they showcasing Josh Allen for some reason. They're trying to make him to this star quarterback that he's not is. But other than that, they want this showdown so bad with Josh Allen, and they gave him every chance. They tried to change the rules for him. They put him on Madden cover, even though he didn't deserve to be on a Madden cover. But that's another.
Can you put Mahomes on the Madden cover?
But that's another topic. But with that said, guys, we want to thank you guys for watching. We want to thank you guys for tuning in. You also can catch me at Hence Todd at Bowtie Sports LSC's number 18. Or you can catch Nick at Chiefs Insider. And Andre Tillman is not on here. But other than that, guys, stay tuned. We will have all the Chiefs updates on Chiefs Blitz. Anything more you want to say, Nick?
We're all good, brother. Thanks for being on, Hence. And appreciate it. Everybody out there, continue to subscribe to our YouTube channel. Check out our content. We'll have at least 1-2 pieces of content coming up on a daily basis. Definitely bringing in more staff. We're going to start bringing in some other guys for our show, kind of get some other opinions. And we're just here to just talk about our team, enjoy the Chiefs run, enjoy this ride. And we appreciate the response. I've been extremely humbled by the amount of people who have come back from the Warpaint Illustrated days to view our content and to want to get involved again. And that was one of the greatest times of my life. I enjoyed it immensely, unretired from this. So we're all back in it. Hence, want to thank you so much for taking the chance and believing in a guy who has no technical skills, doesn't understand how to do anything from an electronic standpoint. But
you've been learning.
I'm learning, man.
You've been learning.
I have evolved over the last 2 to 3 weeks quite a bit. At least my equipment's good now. That's a plus. Some of the graphics I'm doing, they kind of work. So we'll get there. But I appreciate you as my partner and in this madness of Chiefs Blitz, and we're excited again. Thank everyone. We'll be back. We'll probably do another show later in the week, and then we'll start ramping up for Chiefs and Lions. A week from Thursday, the NFL opener at Arrowhead, they will unveil the new banner, the new signs, and celebrate like they didn't get to celebrate for winning Super Bowl 54 because of all the COVID nonsense. So here we go. Let's rock and roll. Appreciate you all, and we'll chat soon.
All right, guys. See you next time.
All right, brother. Woo.